Hello and welcome to week 2, lesson 1. In this lesson, we're going to look at some properties of real numbers. By the end of the lesson, you'll be able to state the properties of real numbers and be able to use the properties when simplifying expressions. So what are those properties? Well, there's 5 of them that we're going to look at today. The first one and the second one is where we're going to spend most of our time. The commutative properties and the associative properties. We've also got identity properties, a zero property of multiplication, and a multiplication property of -1. So we're going to go through all 5 of those, starting with the commutative property. Commutative, a lot of people think of the word commute, and commute is going from one place to another. Kind of works the same way with numbers, okay? Changing the order or moving the numbers. The orders are commuting or moving. Changing the order does not change the sum or the product. Sum is addition, product is multiplication. So we're going to first look at addition. What it's saying is if I have A plus B, I could reorder that or commute those two to B plus A. The answer or the sum will be the same. And I have an example to show you that. So 1 plus 9 is 10. If I flip the 9 and the 1 and do 9 plus 1, I get 10 again. The sum does not change when I change the order. With multiplication, it says basically the same thing. I can do A times B, or I can switch those and say B times A. The sum, or the product will be the same. An example, 2 times 5 is 10. If I switch them, 5 times 2 is also 10. Now we're going to do an investigation. Does that commutative property hold true for subtraction and division? Well, to see if it works, we're going to try as an example, kind of like I did on the previous slide with the 1 plus 9 and the 9 plus 1 that we did with addition. It worked for addition. So what I want you to do is I want you to find an example, pick some numbers, and try subtracting them. Does it work? Doesn't it? Go ahead and pause the video. Try it. Well, the 2 numbers that I chose were 7 and 2. If you do 7 minus 2, you get 5. If you reorder those and do 2 minus 7, you get -5. 5 and -5 are not the same. They're not equal. Therefore, the commutative property does not hold true for subtraction. What about division? Well, I'll do 10 and 2. 10 divided by 2 is 5. If I switch the order and do 2 divided by 10, I get 0.2. Those are not equal. It does not hold true for division. So that was the commutative property. Now we're going to move on to the associative property. Associative, think of who you associate with. Okay, so this one's dealing with grouping symbols. Changing the grouping does not change the sum or product. So again, we're going to look at addition first. In that example, I have A plus B grouped together. So I would add A plus B, and then I would add C. Does it matter if I move the grouping to the B plus C and add those two together first, and then add A at the end? Well, let's do some examples with some numbers. 3 plus 2 plus 1 equals 3 plus, and then parentheses around the 2 plus 1. We got to follow order of operations on both sides. So on the left side, 3 plus 2 gives me 5, and then I add 1 at the end. On the right-hand side, I do 2 plus 1 first, and I get 3. 3 plus 3 gives me 6. So both sides are 6. So the associative property held true there. Let's do it with multiplication. 2 times 3, I'm going to do that first. I get 6. And then 6 times 4 gives me 24. What if I move the grouping symbols to the 3 and the 4? Well, 3 times 4 is 12. And 2 times 12 is also 24. The associative property works for addition and multiplication. Again, we're going to look at subtraction and division. You might be able to guess whether it works or not. Try some numbers. Go ahead and pause it. With subtraction, I chose 5, 2, and 1. So I grouped the 5 and the 2, and then subtract 1 at the end. 5 minus 2, I got to do that first. That gives me 3. And then 3 minus 1 is 2. On the right-hand side, same numbers, 5, 2, and 1, but I'm going to group the 2 and the 1. So 2 minus 1 gives me 1. 5 minus 1 is 4. 2 and 4 are not equal. Therefore, the associative property did not hold true for subtraction. Does it work with division? It does not. 20 divided by 4 divided by 2. We'll do 20 divided by 4 first. That gives me 5. And then do 5 divided by 2. That gives me 2.5. What if I group the 4 and the 2 together? 20 divided by, and then you do 4 divided by 2, which gives you 2. 20 divided by 2 is 10. The associative property does not hold true for division. We're going to finish the video with looking at the last 3 properties. The identity property of addition and multiplication. Think identical. So what do I add to a number to make it identical to the starting number? So if I have a random number A and I add nothing to it, I land back at where I started, A. So the identity property for addition is adding 0. An example is 75.2 plus 0, you still have 75.2. What about for multiplication? What can I multiply by to maintain or keep A as my answer? A lot of people think 0. Well, no, it doesn't work that way because A times 0 would give me 0. In multiplication, the identity is 1. A times 1, you get A, right? 99 times 1 is 99. So the identity properties slightly different for addition and multiplication, but it's what gives you the same answer. Kind of talked about this one already. The 0 property of multiplication is just that if you multiply a number by 0, you get 0. And then the last one, the multiplication property of -1, says that if I multiply a number by -1, I get the opposite sign. So -1 times A gives me -A. Or -1 times 17 gives me -17. That's all for the properties of real numbers. Good luck on your assignment.